In Chapter 4, we went over working with content, and that was working with frames, shapes, icons, and a number of the different tools to apply those to our design. So now that we have some well-rounded knowledge on how the tools work, there are still some screens left to be designed here, and to apply the knowledge we gained in the previous chapters into completing our design. So if you want, you can go through these videos with me in completing these designs, or you can open up this chef recipe drawing PNG located in your assets folder and design each one of these screens based off of the sketches that you see here. Either way is fine with me, but if you want to follow along, I'm just going to get started with this first video creating a slide out menu here in the menus frame. So the first thing I want to do inside of here is create a rectangle using the R key for a shortcut. And I'll just create this at 320 pixels. And I'm going to use the same red color that we've been using in previous videos. And now that we have this component set up, I can go into the components panel here and drag and drop this button menu somewhere here. And I can even align it with this one, holding down Shift and selecting. I can align this to the top and then make sure that this has 20 pixels here against the edge of this rectangle. That'll match the same 20 pixels here. Now very quickly I'm going to add some text. So I'll just use the T keyboard command and I'm just going to start typing these in. I'm going to set this to left justify. Okay, so we have our 4 menu items. I'm going to quickly style this with white text, and under the advanced menu I want to transform my text to uppercase, and I want the paragraph height to be 30 pixels here, and this text can actually be, let's try 20 pixels right here. So that's looking pretty decent. Maybe I'll have medium, and now I'll align this with the edge and hold down Shift and the right arrow 2 times or 3 times. So we have our menu here, and I also want to hit the L key for align, and I'll just draw a line that's 30 pixels here, and I'll make this stroke white, and this can probably be a 5 pixel stroke with the edges rounded. So I'm going to cap this with a round cap. And we can see here we are in popular recipes. Now we want to hold down Option and copy this text down here. I'm just going to add some more text for the user login, Harry Truman. And if I tap the O key for ellipse, I can create a 46 pixel circle. Just going to dial that in here because I couldn't get it correct the first time. And now that I have this circle selected, I'm going to go in and fill this with an image. It's going to ask me to choose the image, and I'm going to go into my assets folder here, and we can see this avatar.png. Going to just go ahead and open this up here, and we have Harry Truman profile image here. So you can see very quickly we have our menu all designed and set up. And in the next video, we're going to finish our pop-up screen for the completed recipe. In this video, we're going to complete our on-screen overlay screen. This is the screen that tells them you did it, let your friends know about it, or leave a review. So this screen will pop up as soon as they click on this last step here, finalizing their preparation. And that's what we have here. So in a previous video, under the Styles video, we already learned how to overlay some of these layers here. So we have a rectangle with a nice background blur. We have this. This is just an image of this artboard here. So we exported the image out, we imported it back into here, and now we have these 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. So it's an image, this blurred rectangle, and then we have this pop-up overlay rectangle with some drop shadows. And we have this component that we created in an earlier video too. So let's complete the rest of this here. First off, we need to add some text. And The cool thing about previous artboards and some designs is I can hold down Option and just copy some of these things if I know it's going to be similar to the same style. So I can just type here, "You did it," and right here I'll just use the same text. "Let your friends know about it." And here it's a little bit wider than I'd like, so I can just change that here. And holding down Shift, I can nudge this 10 pixels. Shift Command, left arrow. I can resize this to be 10 pixels. So now we have 4 icons. That's the Google Plus icon, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram icon. And if you want, you can use any icons that you find online for Google Plus, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Or if you go into your assets folder, we have 4 SVG icons already for Google, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So if you want to just use these, let's just hold down Shift to select all of these. And I'm just going to drag these in here, and we can see that they are all inserted now. I want to lock the proportions, and let's just make the height of each one of these 20 pixels right now. And I can already see that's a little bit big, so I'm going to change this to 12 pixels, and that looks a little bit better. Now I can align these, and the first thing I want to do with these icons here is wrap them in their own little circle. So tapping the O key and creating a 20 pixel by 20 pixel circle. I can make this circle red, and now we'll go in here and we'll create all of these to be white. We'll center these and bring them over here. And if I zoom in here, I can kind of see what's going on with this. Google Plus is a little bit large, so I'm going to scale this down a little bit. The width will probably make 16 pixels. And we can play around with this a little bit later on too if they're too unbalanced. So we'll start right here. And the last thing here, this Facebook icon, we want to change this a little bit because we only want this F. We don't want this bounding box. So we can double click inside of here a few times, and let's look in our layers panel. We can see that this is grouped. There's an F, and then there's a rounded rectangle. So I'm just going to delete this rounded rectangle here, and now we only have this F. So now I can bring this F over here and resize this. I know it's looking a little bit messy right now. If we want, we can hide some of these other ones here as we look at this F. That's a lot better. And now that we have all of these selected, I'm just going to clean up these layers because it shows them all grouped. So let's just select all of these groups holding down Shift, and I'm going to select Shift Command G, and now one more time Shift Command G, and I'll just name this Social Twitter, Social Instagram, Social Google Plus, Social Facebook. And now I can select this circle and these other social icons, and you see sometimes it actually didn't put this in the same frame as the circle. Sometimes it's a little bit weird like that, so we want to drag this back down where this circle is. And I'm going to hold down Command and select this circle as well, and we'll just group everything by creating a component, and we're going to call this the social component. Now again, we're going to hold down Option and copy this, and then I'll right click and move this to the components page, and now we have this child component. This is where we want to start off with the Google Plus icon. Now we'll hold down Option 3 more times and copy this. And this one we want to be Facebook. Here we want it to be Instagram, and here let's have this be Twitter. So we've done a good job already, but you can still see this is quite large compared to the circle. So let's right click on one of these and we'll go to the master component, And just jumping inside of here, I'm going to hide each one and just go ahead and resize some of these things using the scale tool. Might help. Something like that I think will look good. Let's center that in the artboard. This Google Plus. Bring that down a little bit more. Instagram. Scale that a little bit, something like this. And same thing with Twitter. And let's center that. We can jump back into our pages, our page 1, and see how that all looks. And one thing I forgot to do, I'm going to jump back into components, is unhide the rest of these. Jump back in here, and that looks far more balanced. Now the last thing I want to do is add some text here to leave a review. And now we want to center all of these things, and watch when I click to drag a drag handle to select everything, I'm actually dragging these things behind. So this is where the lock layers will come in really handy. These two layers right here I want to lock. Now I can click and drag to select everything here except for these circles. Hold down Shift and just click to deselect those. And now I can align horizontal centers here, and I'll align everything here to the frame and also the center of the frame right here. Now I can start to align some of these items. So I could just choose to add 10 pixels between each of these icons. So I'll butt them right next to each other, hold down Shift and the right arrow key, butt this next to the G, Shift, right arrow key. All right. So now let's center this with the overlay, and let's put a nice 20 pixels in between there, and 0 pixels in between here. And 1, 2, 3, that's 20 pixels. I'm going to hold down Shift, and one more, I'm going to have that 30 pixels here. And then down here, I'm going to add 30 pixels here, and 10 pixels right here. And when you're asking someone to leave a review here, you want this all to be unfilled. So because this is a component, I can choose this first star to hide this filled layer. I'm going to also hide this star. Same thing here. Same thing here. And now it's blank and ready for them to leave a review. Last thing I want to do is resize this. So I want this to also have 30 pixels between the bottom of this pop-up window and the bottom of these stars. So we can see it's 26 pixels right here. So again, I can just hold down Command to resize instead of move. And I'll tap this down arrow 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have a nice 30 pixels here and 30 pixels here. I'll move this shadow to be centered again. And now I can select everything here, hit Command G to group it, and just make sure that this is centered with the frame that it's inside. The last thing I want to do is add an X right here. So I'll just quickly draw one. We'll have this 2 pixels here, have this rounded, and now I'll select this line, click Command C, Command V, and quickly rotate. And for some reason when you rotate, it's rotating on this left axis, which is a little bit weird, but I can just nudge this using the arrow keys to make it straight. I just noticed that when I was working with lines, they behave a little bit unpredictably, but now that I have this, I can click on this union selection, and now I have one nice fill. I'll scroll out, and I want to rotate this to 45 degrees. And now I can go into Object and flatten this selection and change this to be a nice even size. We'll do 10 pixel by 10 pixel. And we'll just make this, if we hold down Shift and nudge this left once and right once, it'll just sit 10 pixels away from the edge there. So now we have a nice pop-up menu. Says you did it, they can leave a review, let their friends know, or tap this X and jump back into the recipe. Now I'm going to hit 0 to zoom out 100% to see how that looks. And it looks really good to me, but sometimes you have some artifacts. There's this edge right here that looks like this, the edge of this isn't hitting the top even though it is. So sometimes if you get that, it doesn't hurt to grab this shape inside of here and just move it up past the box just to make sure that you have everything filled inside of here. So this is how you illustrate an overlay here. You have to duplicate the image and then place some objects above this. Now that we have the overlay designed, we want to design the comments section inside of the recipe details screen here. So you can feel free to design this on your own and match this with what I am doing. And if you want to do that, just pause this video and crank away at the design, and then you can resume this video and see how it closely matches with what I'm talking about here. But if you want to follow along, feel free to do so as well. So let's scroll down here. We're going to jump into the recipe details frame right here. We can scroll down here and we want a comment section. So I know that I can copy something like this. I'm going to just copy this down and I'm going to name this comments. And we know we don't want this same component here. So if I don't want to ruin this component, I can right click and detach instance. So now this is no longer a component. It's not related to this master component. And I can hold down Shift Command G and I can delete this vector image and place in a comment image. So if I go into my components panel here, you can see that I've already created some icons here as a component. So I can click and drag this into my artboard here. And now if I go back into layers, I only want this comment icon, so I'm going to hide these two. And I have that comment. And you can do this a number of ways, but I'm just going to delete this icon here. I'm going to use this child component and bring this inside of here. And you can see that I want this to match the same exact design as in this artboard to the left of it here. But the color needs to change. So sometimes there are exceptions to your design just for one-time instances, and that's where child components really come in handy with overrides. So I can double click on this layer here and I can create this to be white, and if you see when I double click inside of here, there's this override symbol that's telling me I'm overriding the fill, and I can always reset that to the master component if I want, or just change this and override it just this one time. So now I'm going to bring that inside of my circle, and I can create this as its own component or master component as well and reuse throughout other areas if I'd like. So now I'm going to hit the E keyboard shortcut and just a 46 by 46 pixel avatar. And here I'm going to hit the T key and just add some text real quick. So I'm going to add Tom Klein. He's a user of our app. And I'm going to make this 13 pixels here and just regular. And if I want to match this color of this font, I can do it a few ways, but I'm just going to quickly use this eyedropper tool and select something here. And you can see that I got barely off where I wanted to select. So there we go. And I can say this prime rib roast was amazing. And it is all caps because under my advanced menu, I have that transform control on, but I'm going to toggle this off. And maybe I want to have this italics as well. And the date that he commented was 7.01.2017. And I'm going to have this medium just like that. Now I can quickly set some sizes here. Just align this with the base of this. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just nudge this around to your liking. And this is 26 pixels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have that 20 pixels now, 10 pixels, 10 pixels. So that's looking pretty good. And now I can click on this circle. I'm going to fill this with an image. And I can click on Choose Image. And I have a few other avatar images. So I'm going to click on Avatar 2. And this is starting to look really good. So maybe I'll just save this as a component in itself. So I'm going to click Create Component. And now this is a master component. And if I click inside of here, I can use this component frame to resize around. And you can see that it's doing some weird stuff. So I'm going to hit Command Z. I'm going to set some constraints in this component just real quick. So I know that this is always going to be constrained to the left and the top. This is also, in fact, all of these are going to be constrained to the left top. And then this one here, I can constrain this to the left and right so it grows as I grow this frame here. So I'm going to hit the edge of this at 20. And you can see this is now behaving the way I want it. And now I can hold down Option on this component, create a child component here, and I can override the text here, name this Sally Parker. And you see what it did here, I had the text aligned to the center, so I can go to the master component here and say I want this to align to the left actually, and that changes automatically. And now I notice that this text here is running into this text. So I probably want to add more spacing here. So I can hold down Shift and maybe I'll do something like that. I'm going to fix my spelling here and I'm going to just type in a comment for Sally Parker. Okay, so this one's a little bit lengthier, but we can see that everything adjusted the right way and it looks really good. And lastly, we can do a fill override as well. So I can click on this image and choose a new image. I'm going to choose Avatar 3 under our Assets folder and go ahead and change that. And even though this is a master component, if I ever want to change this text here to be Roboto, medium, black, anything else, I can change that very easily. In fact, a good example of this, if I move this down, is I know that I want a 5-star rating system inside of here. And we know we already have that inside of our component. So I'm going to click under Components here, go to my 5-star system, and I can drag this inside of this component actually. So now that that's dragged inside of there, I'm going to move the rest of these guys down, holding down Shift. And you can see how everything's just moving in place. I'm going to bring that to the top here. And I want this to be a little bit smaller actually. And I can do a scale override on this component as well. So if I use the scale tool here down at the bottom, I can hold down Shift to constrain my sizes. And I want it to be maybe 10 pixels tall, something like that, a little bit smaller. And now I'll just adjust the rest of these to be 10 pixels or 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pixels from the stars. And I'm going to move this up here to just almost hit this. And very quickly you have your comments in here. Now the last piece I'm going to create is a little type your comment here widget down here. So I'm going to hit R for rectangle, draw a rectangle here that is 40, do 45 pixels here. And remember, we already created a user persona for this design, and that was Harry Truman. So I can click this avatar here and hold down Option. I'm just going to copy this down here and reuse this. And here, maybe I want the avatar to be 32 pixels. I'm going to line this to the left, let it sit at 20 pixels here. And add some text here. Type your comment here. Now I can reuse the same icon that we used previously. I'm going to go into my Layers panel and hide the rest of these. So that's looking good, and I'll set that 20 pixels from the right here. And the last thing I want to do is create a white fill, and instead of a stroke, if we add a stroke here, you see that you have strokes around the edges. I don't want that. So I can show you how to add just a top and bottom stroke here. If we go under Effects and a drop shadow, we can actually add a 1 pixel drop shadow that has a 0 pixel blur, and that shows up as a stroke or a line. I'm going to make that 10 pixel opacity so it's pretty light. And I can just create a new one here, and I'll do the same thing except -1. 10% opacity, 0 pixel blur, and you can see we have a top and a bottom line here. Now I'm going to select all of this, create a new component, and when I do that, I'm just going to make sure that everything's pinned to the top left how it should be. Here this should be pinned to the center, and well, to the left here, and also to the center down here. And this could be pinned to the right, center. And now I'll just stretch this something like this and change the opacity to 20%. And the last thing we want to do is resize our frame. So we're going to click on the frame here, come down here and just resize this. I'm going to hold down Command to zoom in. And now if I hold down Option, I can see that this is 36 pixels from the base of this. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, holding down Command and the arrow keys. And then if I hold down Shift, 1, 2, 3, that'll move it 10 pixels 3 times. So you have a nice snug component in our frame. Also, we can try resizing this. We see that everything looks really good. And I'm going to pin this to the left and right. So now when we resize it, it kind of breaks down here. Looking really good. Same thing with these components, just really quickly. Top left. These are all top left. This is left, right. So this is looking good. I can resize this now. It's looking really decent. And then these guys we want just to be centered. Top center. There we go. We can move these around. We're just playing with some spacing now just to get things looking good. I haven't had an exact spacing convention in here. Mainly because I just wanted to use this time to teach you the actual tools, and later we're going to go in and fix a lot of the spacing. While we're inside here, we have some alignment issues for some of these things, so I'm just going to select all of them and align horizontal centers. And our design is starting to look really clean here. We did change the text here to blue, and we didn't change those here. So again, Option Command C, then we can select these layers, and Option Command V, and paste those layers in. Just going to clean up some things, make this all caps here, and this is looking really, really good. Our design is looking really good and is almost ready to prototype, but we're missing a few designs that I think are key to prototyping this correctly. And that is when we click on appetizers, entrees, or desserts, we want to see how that toggle looks between this. So to do this, we're going to create some more frames here, and I'm just going to move these over here to the right to make some room. And now I can hold down Option, and I'll copy this 2 times. And I'm going to rename this frame here. It's named Home, but I'm just going to name this Home Entrees. I'll name this one Home Appetizers, and this one Home Desserts. So to show you how these toggles work, let's just go in here. I'm going to zoom into all 3 of these, and I'll show you how you can change each of these. So here we have the entrees all correct. This is the appetizers screen. So to change the state here, I'm actually going to hold down Command, and if you hold down Command, it will drill inside of a group. Right now I'm just selecting a group, but if you want to select elements inside of the group without double clicking multiple times, just hold down Command. I can click on Entrees, and with some quick shortcuts, Option Command C to copy the style, Option Command V to paste the style, and then I'm going to select Dessert, do the same thing, Option Command C, Option Command V, and paste this. And I'm just going to move this line now over here and stretch this out a bit, holding down Option to lock my left and right symmetry here. So now we show appetizers, and the same thing with dessert. I'm just going to change this here so it's the same process. Option Command C, Option Command V, Option Command C, Option Command V. And then I'll move this line over here to dessert and just nudge this. And now we have entrees, appetizers, desserts. Inside of our assets folder, I have some text that we can copy here for the appetizers and for the desserts. So we have the recipe breadsticks text file for the appetizers and the recipe shortcake text file for the dessert. So we can quickly just select this, Command C to copy, and we'll click in here a few times and Command V, and we'll just call this breadsticks. And now with home desserts, we're going to use this strawberry shortcake, Command C, Command V. And I'll just name this here. So now we have prime rib, breadsticks, strawberry shortcake. Now I want to change the rating of these breadsticks here. I'm actually going to give this 4 stars. So that's looking good. And if I want to give this 4 stars as well, I'm just going to delete that. And to make life simpler, I'm just going to Command C, click on this frame, and Command V. And I notice here that this isn't centered, so we can quickly use the center icon and center our star ratings. And I'm going to hold down Shift to select all of these. I'm just going to nudge this down a little bit so it's a little bit further away from this image. Now for the images. All we have to do is click inside of here, click Choose Image. We have our Assets folder here. We're going to look for some breadsticks here. And then the rest of the appetizer images, we have to click on this X to get out of there, and click on this group, double click a few times until we see this image thumbnail, and we'll choose a new appetizer, these caprese. It's like mozzarella cheese with some tomatoes. And the last appetizer here is going to be hot wings. I love the hot wings. So we have that set up. We're going to do the same thing over here. We know we want a strawberry shortcake. Let's go into our desserts. Dessert right here, strawberry shortcake. And to the left, we can add this chocolate cake. And feel free to Google your own images and place whatever you want in here. I'm just showing you the workflow for creating and duplicating some of these designs. The last thing I'm going to have is dessert ice cream cobbler. Okay, so we have home entrees, home appetizers, and home desserts. We zoom out here. We can see we have a nice complete design here, and we're ready to finally wrap things up on the design. Now that we've designed all of the elements inside of each one of these frames, I want to challenge you to give this design your own personality. You can use your own colors, your own fonts, and try playing around with the icons, the sizes, and everything else to make this app really your own. I'll also add some time on this design, just adding a few minor elements here to really give it a nice polish. By using the skills that you learned in the previous video, you should be well-rounded and be able to adjust a lot of these designs here, adjust the text, and anything else that you would like. One thing that I was interested in doing here as I was designing this is giving some of the shapes like this a little bit more organic feel. So I could double-click into this, for example, and I can just tweak this circle just a little bit to make it look kind of like a ketchup blob. So we can do something like that just to give it a little bit more personality. And so try things like that and try different fonts. So for example, I like the font Fat Frank, so I can click on some of these text elements here and go into the text, just type in Fat Frank, and everything changes here. Looks like I have some extra text inside of here, so I'm just going to delete that and move this back. And so already there's some added personality here, and I can Option Command C to copy this style and even paste it across other elements here. So play with the corner radiuses here, play with the sizes, and when you're done with the design, feel free to add me as a collaborator. You can use the email caleb@brainspin.com to share your designs with me, and I'm happy to comment and give you advice along the way with your design. Also, if you want to share any parts of your design, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, just use the hashtag Figma recipe, and I'll be watching out for that hashtag, and I can give you some comments and feedback there. Okay, so I've added some finishing touches here, and I can walk you through what I've done. I went and tweaked the font here. This was a handwritten font using the pencil tool, so I just tweaked the sizes to keep it more consistent. And then I used the Fat Frank font here for some of the header text or the menu text. I used that across the project here, and I changed my paragraph text to be Burial, which is a font that I really like. And so it just gives it just a little bit more personality here. It just looks a little bit more fun. And we can come down here. I played a little bit with the line heights, and I also made these circles just a little bit more organic here. And same thing here, so it looks like just like a drop of ketchup or something. And lastly, under the comments window, I just created a light gray rectangle here to kind of divide the comments section from the rest of this. And I actually forgot the style of this font here, so I'm just going to copy and paste this here. So now we have all of our artboards all designed and lined up here, and we are ready to begin prototyping. Finally, we are ready to prototype our design. Now, prototyping is really easy, and you can find the prototyping tab here next to the design tab. And once you click on this prototyping tab, then you get this circle here to the right of every object that you select that you can click and drag to link your artboards up. So if we're starting off with the splash screen, we want to go from the splash screen to the home entrees screen here. And I'm going to zoom in here so that we can see just in a little bit more detail what I'm doing. And as you can see with these three screens, we want to link these up by clicking on appetizers to jump to this page and entrees to jump to this page, but they're all inside one group. Well, that's okay. We could link the group to other artboards, but that's not going to work in our case, so we can double click to drill into just this dessert text here, and we can drag this over to desserts, and we don't need to link up entrees because we're on the entrees page. We can link up appetizers, and same thing here, entrees goes here, desserts goes here, and same thing here, entrees, appetizers. So we already have those linked up. Now we can select these menu items and link these up here. And it looks like those are all correct. And now we're going to run into a bit of a problem here. We have these hyperlinks here. I created this all in one text box. And this works okay in most design cases, but if you want to prototype this, you can only prototype this one box. So it's not going to work for us. So we can jump back into design here. And I'm just going to select this text here and do a Command X to cut it. And now we'll just copy these elements down here. I'll paste this in, do the same thing, cut down here, paste this, and cut this last text, and paste again. These have to be individual text boxes just for the sake of prototyping. So now I want these to be 30 pixels apart, and that looks good now. So we can jump back into prototype mode. And now I can jump into popular recipes is going to be this page here. And we didn't design a saved recipes, shopping list, or settings screen. But if you wanted to design some screens to kind of mock up this interaction, you can do that and then just link to your saved recipes after you design something like that. So this will work for what we have so far. And so this menu, actually, we want this to link back to the popular recipes as well, kind of a slide back and forth type of thing. Now, if the user clicks on this image, we want that to link to the recipe details screen, and maybe this title too. So we're going to link this to the recipe details as well. And then as we're going down this list, if the user clicks on this last step, checking it off, they're going to get this screen saying you did it, share with your friends. And they can click on this X here to jump back, or maybe this background image, they can click on here and jump back as well. So I think we have everything linked up, and we can test it very quickly just to make sure. So we have the start screen right here. We can move it anywhere we want, but we're going to leave this at the splash screen here. And we'll just go into present mode, and let's see how well we've done. We have the design chef screen. We can click anywhere to jump into our popular recipes. And let's just see how this menu works here. So we can click there or click back. That toggle works great. Or we can click on popular recipes here. And we can toggle between appetizers, entrees, and desserts here. So that's looking really good. And I probably should have changed the timing because it doesn't take 5 hours for strawberry shortcake, but you can change that if you want. Now, we have that all set up, and you can see if I click here, nothing happens because we don't have a strawberry shortcake recipe. We don't have a breadsticks recipe, but we do have this prime rib roast, so that's going to jump us into this. And you see how this is zoomed out to show us the entire artboard? Well, what we want to do is change this fill area to display at 100% always. So now this behaves a little bit more like what you would see on the iPhone. Now, one thing I've noticed while prototyping, and this is why prototyping is so helpful, I don't have a way to jump back into that home screen. So very quickly, I can still jump into my prototyping file, and we can see down here we need an X icon. So I'm just going to zoom in to these two artboards. I'll go back into design, and I already have an X right here that I can use, so I'll just hold down Option and bring this over here and just lay this in the center somewhere, and I'm going to make the fill white, and I probably want to make this a little bit bigger. So 20 pixels by 20 pixels. And that's looking good. I think that'll be a nice X screen. The last thing I'm going to do is just add a subtle drop shadow here of 50 pixel opacity and 0 pixels vertically. So we have that nice X. We can still jump into our prototyping present mode, and we can see that we have that X now. But if we go back into our design and go into prototype view, now I can choose to have this X come back over to entrees, jump back into my prototyping, and now I can toggle back and forth between these. So again, as you prototype, you'll see things like this where you may get stuck in the prototyping or the interaction, and you'll have to go back into your design, add some buttons, and then test again to make sure that somebody can go through your design. The last screen we have right here is we can check off this last step, and we have this congratulations you did it screen, and we can click X to jump back into our prime rib roast. Now that we have everything prototyped here, when we're in prototype mode, we can click on share prototype right here, and we can either add people's emails to share this to them, or we can click copy link here. So now that the link is copied to the clipboard, we can text or email that link to anybody that we'd like. Okay, and now that I have this link emailed to me, I can tap on the link here. It'll open this up in your browser, and once I sign into Figma, I can play with this prototype here directly through this browser. So if I click on appetizer, dessert, entrees, I can click on the menu, and you can really see this live on your device, which is really helpful. As you're designing your app, sometimes it's really helpful to see what these screens are going to look like directly on your device. And to do that, Figma has a nice app for Android and for iPhone, and it's called the Figma Mirror app. So just look in the Google Play Store for Figma Mirror, or look in the Apple App Store for Figma Mirror. And once you download this app, you can sign in using your Figma login name and password, and you'll be presented with a screen that tells you to click on a frame on your desktop to see what it looks like on your phone. So here we have the home entrees frame, and when I click on this, you can see that our iPhone updates showing us what this frame looks like directly on the device. And one thing that's really nice about this is you can tweak your sizes, you can move things around, and these things happen live directly on your device as well. So sometimes I like to design some icons that are quite large here, and you don't know how large they're going to be in relation to your device. And so it's nice to look at that and then do a quick resizing here to make the sizes relative to your screen and make the tap area large enough so that you can't miss it. Please share your designs with me. I would love to give you feedback using the comment tool here and help you out with your design. If you have any questions at all after designing all of these and after going through the video, if you click this share icon here, you can share this with friends and colleagues, any design files that you want. Or if you'd like to share with me, just type in caleb@brainspin.com here, and then you can choose for me to just view if you'd like. And if I have view access, I still have the ability to comment and give you feedback without going in and messing up your design. I'm excited to see your design and to see the things that make sense to you and what doesn't make sense to you, and I would love to help you out beyond this course. Now when you do click on this share icon, you can share to multiple people this way, or you can copy a link and share it through a text or email. And you can also embed this design directly inside of a blog. So if you enable public access here, it'll make it viewable by everybody, and it will give you some code that you can embed inside of WordPress or any other blog that you want to share. So when somebody logs into your website, they can see this design, and even as you update the design, it will show on your blog as well. Now if you add any collaborators using this share icon, you can add them to only view or to edit the design itself. But all collaborators that have access to this design all have the ability to comment. So if I click show comments here, you will be able to interact with multiple collaborators by clicking on a frame and just typing something like, "Those breadsticks look yummy." And they have some basic emoticons that you can use. And you just hit post, and there's my comment. If there's any comments for feedback, if somebody giving you feedback on color changes or padding, if you finish, you can click this resolve button here, and you can see that they're hidden in the list of comments. You can toggle the resolved comments on and off here, and if you toggle them back on, you can unresolve them if they need further editing. Also, any collaborators that you share with this project, anytime that you comment anything, then I have right here enabled to receive email notifications. So if I share this with anybody and they comment, I'm going to get an email that shows me what they commented. I can click on that email link and jump right into the frame that they're commenting on. After you've finished with your design and you tested out the prototype and everything looks really good, you probably want to export some of these assets for your developers to use. A good way to do this is to look at each screen. So we have this screen right here with the chef's hat icon and then some custom text here. So I'm going to just group all of this text. I'm going to name this title, chef's recipe. And here I'm just going to name this icon, chef's hat. And you just want to make sure that all of your graphics are named correctly, the name that you want the file to export as. And now if we click on this export button here, we can see that there's 0 of 0 selected designs. That's because if we want to use this, we want to make these graphics exportable. So we can click on this plus icon here, and we can choose to export this as PNG, JPEG, or SVG. Now if we choose PNG, we can export this at its exact pixel size. Or if we want to add a 2 times or a 3 times, you can just keep on hitting this plus icon and it will create some multiple sizes here. So we have a 2x, 3x, and if we want text appended to the file name, that's what this is doing here. So it's going to say icon chef's hat at 2x at 3x. So very quickly, I'm enabling these two to be exported. 1 time, 2 time, 3 times. And let's go over here the same thing. We want to make sure that these are named correctly. So we can just name this timer, name this heart, just really quickly. You probably have different naming conventions, but just make it really simple for your developers to find what they want. And you want to do this throughout all of the designs here, but let's just use these three. So I can select all three of these and come down here. I'm going to hit plus. It's exporting those as 1 time, 2 times, 3 times right here. So now I don't have to have anything selected because I've preset those to be exportable. I can click on this export now and it'll tell me there's 15 graphics that are going to be exported. And you see this is 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. And this is giving me an error that the origin is not aligned to pixels. But we can quickly click export. I'm going to just export this to my desktop. And I'll create a new folder called assets and hit save. And now when I go into my assets folder under my desktop, when I created these, you can see the names of these comments at 2x, at 3x. And so very easily I can see what these look like. So this is 3 times, 2 times, and 1 time. They're different sizes, and you can pass these off to your developer to use while they're developing the front end of this design. Another thing you can do to export assets for your developers is just share this Figma file with them. And they don't have to know how to design, they just have to know how to grab these elements and even mark some of these elements themselves as exportable. So for example, if we click on this home entrees here and we go to the code section, your developer can still click on these icons. They can name them whatever they want here, and they can choose to export these however they want to export these, whatever's going to be the best format for them. And they can export these individually, so if they click export button menu, for example, they can go into the same folder and click save. And if we jump back into here, we can see that those are also saved here. So it's very easy to export these things out, and in fact, once you preset these elements, if you ever change them in the future and click to re-export, it'll just overwrite over those existing images and create new, fresh versions automatically.